Before the dawn of time, the heavens operated through a rigid hierarchy. It was a realm of absolute peace, structured so that every celestial being functioned in perfect unison with the divine will. Lucifer held the highest status within this order, known as the Seal of Perfection. As the Creator's ultimate masterpiece, he possessed an intellect and magnetic charisma that made him the natural leader of the angelic host. To give love and obedience genuine value, God established a rule of free will. Celestial loyalty was not a programmed response. It had to be a conscious choice. This freedom created a specific vulnerability. Lucifer's unparalleled brilliance gave him the capacity to step back and admire his own reflection, separate from the source of his light. His internal focus began to shift. The desire to serve the Creator was slowly replaced by an infatuation with his own capabilities, turning his gaze inward. In a flawless system, the greatest threat emerges when perfection is no longer tempered by humility. Lucifer began to see his own excellence as an end in itself. The rebellion started with a quiet, internal question. Why should a being of such magnificent glory be required to serve anyone? As these thoughts took root, his behavior changed. He withdrew from his celestial duties, and his new, enigmatic silence created a sense of unease among the other angels. God issued a gentle warning. His brilliance was a reflection of the Creator's love, not an independent power source. Lucifer interpreted this dependence as an insult to his autonomy. Pride twisted this call for humility into a perceived threat. While he remained silent externally, his internal framework had shifted. To a mind obsessed with its own power, divine obedience felt like an act of submission to tyranny. A vast intellect without humility becomes a trap. It allows a mind to ignore the very foundations of its own existence in favor of its own ambition. The tension reached a breaking point when God gathered the heavenly host to reveal the creation of the material universe and the future of humanity. God then announced a plan that would challenge the celestial hierarchy, the incarnation. He would take on fragile human flesh, commanding every angel to bow before this mortal form. For Lucifer, this was a calculated humiliation. He could not conceive of a reality where a being made of pure light would worship a creature fashioned from clay. He stood before the divine throne and uttered a definitive no. That single word of defiance shattered the peace of heaven. Lucifer used his charisma to frame this disobedience as a struggle for angelic dignity. His arguments were so persuasive that a third of the angels joined his cause before the Archangel Michael rose to challenge them. Lucifer chose the isolation of rule over the logic of divine humility. He preferred to be the master of a void rather than a servant in paradise. When Michael's faith met Lucifer's pride, their war ended in a violent expulsion. Stripped of his rank, Lucifer was sent plummeting out of the heavens. The morning star was gone. In his place was Satan, a being now defined entirely by his exile and a deep, growing resentment toward his Creator. From this abyss, he found a new target. Unable to strike God directly, he turned his focus toward the material world to corrupt God's most precious creation. In Eden, he used the same psychological tactic that led to his own fall. He whispered to humanity that they could achieve divinity on their own terms without obeying their Creator. This effectively exported the celestial war into the human heart. The conflict between pride and obedience became the defining struggle of the human experience. The anatomy of evil reveals a calculated corruption of perfection. It is a reminder that no mind, no matter how brilliant, is immune to the gravity of its own pride.